boys and girls. My name is Miss Marty, and we'd like to welcome you to Be a Bee. An insect body is divided into 3 areas: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. They also have 6 legs, and most have several eyes. We'll learn more about that later. Most insects have wings when they're adults, including bees, which have 4 wings. Insects have their skeleton on the outside of their body, kind of like a hard shell. So if you want to be a bee, you'll have to carry your skeleton around on the outside of your body. Could you do that? If you were a butterfly, you could suck up flower nectar with your mouth, called a proboscis. You would use your mouth like a drinking straw. And when you're done drinking, it would roll back up in a tight circle next to your head. A honeybee's mouth is a little different. It also has a tube-like mouth, but at the end of the tube, the bee sticks out its tongue, shaped like a little spoon-shaped mop, to lap up the liquid into its tube, and then it sucks it up. Did you know that insects can use their antennae to smell and taste? Bees can detect many different odors with their antennae, including a mate from far away. Not only that, they can hear with their antennae, feeling vibrations in the air. So if you want to be a bee, your superpower would be your antenna. The honeybee has 6 legs that are made up of jointed segments, making them very flexible. The front legs are especially designed to help them clean their antenna, similar to a comb. Each leg has claws for gripping and sticky pads for landing on slippery surfaces. Also, some female bees stuff pollen between little hairs on their legs to take back to the nest. Those are called pollen baskets. But the most amazing thing of all is bees can also taste with their feet. When they land on a flower or plant, they can actually taste the plant with the tip of their feet. So if you want to be a bee, you could use your legs to clean your antenna, gather and carry pollen, and even grip and taste wherever you're standing. Some flies want you to think that they're a bee, not a fly. Does that make them a wannabe? I wonder why a fly wants you to think it's a bee. So you'll leave it alone. Dragonflies have the largest eyes of all insects, called compound eyes, including flies and honeybees. A compound eye is made up of many little eyes, all working together to create a 3D image for the insect. So if you wanted to have compound eyes as large and as complicated as a bee, you might end up looking like this person. Also, a bee has 3 eyes on the top center of its head, called simple eyes. Why is it called a simple eye? Because each eye has only one lens, which makes it much simpler than a compound eye. These little bee eyes help the bee maintain steady flight and to navigate from one place to another. Did you know that insects may see a colorful flower a little differently from how we see the same flower? That's because bees can see in some light wavelengths that are invisible to us humans, such as ultraviolet or UV light, also known as bees' purple. Plants can advertise secret patterns and colors to bees using UV light that we humans cannot see. That helps the bee find the nectar inside the flower. The bee sees these different colored stripes on the flower petals in UV light, called nectar guides. Those little nectar guides help the bee fly to the flower to just the right spot, kind of like a plane following a landing strip or a runway. In this way, the bee gets the nectar it wants, and the plant gets its pollen moved from one flower to another. Did you know that each of you will be planting a pansy to take home today? So I thought you'd be interested in seeing how your pansy might look to a bee. Okay, so what is pollination? Most flowers can't fertilize themselves. They need pollen from a similar flower to fertilize them. So the pollen has to travel to get from flower to flower. But how does it do that? With the help of many, many pollinators. But this morning we're going to be talking mostly about bees as pollinators. Bees get covered in pollen as they visit flowers. Bees help flowering plants to reproduce or make seed by spreading the dusty pollen from one flower to another as they look for nectar. And when that happens, it's called pollination. Did you know that 1 in 3 of all the food and beverages we enjoy came from flower seeds that were pollinated by bees or other insects? Bees and just a few wasps also gather pollen to feed their young. The bee mixes the pollen with flower nectar to make into little balls. Think of it like little loaves of bee bread they make for their young, a power food loaded with energy and protein. When we think of bees, most of the time we think of honeybees. Large numbers of honeybees are taken around the country on trucks to help farmers pollinate their crops. Did you know that there are many other bees out there that are not honeybees? They've been around here for hundreds of thousands of years, and they're called native bees. So who are these cast of characters, these native bees? Well, their common names are awesome. Cellophane polyester bee, sweat bee, leafcutter bee, digger bee, mason bee, carder bee, and carpenter bees. So do they all belong to carpenters' unions? Well, some do because of the materials they use for their nests. And there are also native bumblebees and cuckoo bees. Native bees are mostly rather small. They can range in size from 1/12 of an inch to just a little over an inch, so we may not always be aware of them in our yard. And did you know that most bees in North America lead a solitary life? What does solitary mean? It means they don't live in a hive or a community of bees. There's just one sole female who builds and supplies her own nest, kind of like a single mom. Believe it or not, most of these solitary bees dig nests in bare ground. Look for those little holes. The rest of the solitary bees will look for natural holes for nesting, such as hollow stems, holes in branches or dead trees, or abandoned beetle holes. Or you can have fun putting up tree nesting boxes to attract cavity nesting bees, such as mason bees or leafcutter bees. Did you know that most bees are not flying around looking for someone to sting? They're too busy collecting all the pollen and nectar that they can find. You are completely safe watching bees as they fly from flower to flower, as long as you don't touch them or harass them. But some of these insects may bite or sting or cause allergic reactions, even a honeybee, if you bother it. Remember that many bees die after they sting you, including honeybees, so they really don't want to sting you unless they feel frightened or threatened by you. What are some smart things to do to avoid being stung by a bee? Don't disturb their wasp or bee nest or throw rocks at their nest. Keep 10 to 20 feet away from their nests, which could be up in trees, or they also could be underground. Don't move too quickly or run when passing by bee nests. That may get them upset enough to fly after you. Don't hit or swat them if they're on your clothing. Don't pinch or step on them. Stay calm and just leave them alone by standing quietly and patiently. Wait for them to fly away. Insects need your help, but what can you do? Plant lots of flowers that will attract pollinator insects. Did you know that pesticides can harm good insects as well as bad insects? It's okay to put bug repellent on your skin to keep the mosquitoes and ticks away from you, but please don't use bug spray that kills bugs unless you really have to. Why? Because bug spray insecticides kill all insects, including honeybees, monarch butterflies, and many other insects. So the best way to help beneficial insects is to try not to use pesticides at all, unless you really have to. And last, tell your friends and family about the importance of insects and plants, and participate in activities at home or school that will help these critters. Thank you for your attention during Be a Bee.